So if I want to write something to a file, I will want to use the appropriate flag, whether I'm writing to replace, appending to the end, or I only want to write if I can create a new file. X is for create. And then I simply use the write method to write text to that file. So if I want to do that, let's say I want to add another name here. Let's open that for writing. But the first thing I need to do is I need to close that file before I open it for writing. So I'm going to say fi text dot close like this. Because if I try and open it and it's already open, it's just going to give me an error. So now I'm going to say fi write equals open my data1.text, and I'm going to append to this. So I'm going to say, let's say str text input what name should I add? And I'm going to throw a couple of line breaks in there, and we'll say fi write str text. And then once I open that and write to it, I need to close it. If I don't, I'm going to get errors. So you always want to close. It's sort of like, shutting the refrigerator after you get a glass of milk. Something my kids have yet to master in some cases. But if I throw this all in a while true loop, then it will just go through this over and over and over. So it's going to write the names, and then I can say add a name. Oh, wait a minute. Oops, look at that. What happened here? It added George right on the end of Sarah. Unlike print, write does not, let's look at the file here, it does not automatically create a new line. So when you add something to a file, if you want it to go on a new line, you got to tell it to go on a new line. Because remember, the print function adds a new line at the end of every print. Write does not do that for you. Write will just keep adding on that same line forever and ever. So let's fix that. Okay, so if I want to add something that has a new line in front and start it on a new line, then the easiest way to do that is to combine those strings to say new line plus whatever they input. Okay, so now let's rerun that and add George. Okay. Okay, so that's how we're adding to that file. And now, if I quit the program, okay, I stop the program running and I run it again, it picks up where I left off, which is what we ideally want to happen with all of our programs. Now that's a very simple example, but that's how we do it. Now, if I, instead of append, choose write here, then it's going to show the names. And when I add something, oops, what's going on here? So that file is now empty, which is interesting because it should at least register the name. I'm not exactly sure why it is not. It's open, write, close. it should at least add that name to it. I'm not sure why it's not doing that. Let's go back to append and see what it does. Oh, interesting. There was an empty line there. Oh, I know what happened. Okay, so here's the problem. This is an interesting problem, right? What did I do when I first had it add the name? I had it put a new line in there, but that creates a blank line at the top of the file. So when it comes back around to read line again, the first thing it reads is the blank line I created, and it says, "Oh, there's nothing in there, so we're going to skip everything that's in the loop when it prints them out." So that's interesting. So it's probably safer if I'm creating the file from scratch to always put a new line at the end of that. Now, that only works if I'm starting out with a blank file, because if I don't start with a blank file, it's going to tack that first name on to the end of this. So if I start blank and I say, what name should I add? Now it's working because I started out the right way. So all that to say is there's a lot of different things to consider when you're reading from files, and you want to be able to understand what's going on there. The nice thing about this is that if this file is sitting right here, I can just pop it open and I can kind of diagnose what's going on by looking at the file itself. I can see what it is I'm reading. And so the next thing that gets added will get added. You can see there's a fourth line here because each one of these has a line break. So it creates that fourth line. The next one will get added, and then it'll have a line break after it. So I can see what's going on. And I'm fine, again, as long as everything in that file was created by this program. And that's a pretty big caveat. That's a thing to remember.